What is good, Joe? Welcome back to the year, bro. Welcome back to a brand new video. We are here. We are back with a brand new video for you guys. And listen, we're going to be talking about a couple of potential trade targets that have been rumored for the Miami Heat to be interested in. Not Donovan Mitchell. We're not going to talk about Donovan Mitchell today or anytime until the extension news comes out, whether he's extending or not. I just don't really think it makes sense for me to keep talking about Donovan Mitchell, because if he's not extending with the Cavs, then we can talk about him. But if he's gonna sign the extension like a lot of people think he is, then there's really no point of talking about a potential Donovan Mitchell trade scenario, because that's not gonna happen. So I want to talk about a couple of backup options, Brandon Ingram, Trae Young. Whether the Miami Heat can go after these guys, whether it's viable for the Miami Heat to do so. They're two players that have been talked about in the fan base for a few weeks now. A lot of people have been wanting either one of them. I'm going to be talking about which one I would go for if I had to go for either one, or if I either would go for one or not. But make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts. And let me know down below, man, if Donovan Mitchell does not work out the extension, if he signs it with Cleveland, and if the whole trade possibility is out the window, who do you guys want to see the Heat target in order to compete for next year's championship? So you guys let me know down in the comment section below. Let's get right into it. So listen, we're going to be talking about, like I said, two names, Brandon Ingram and Trae Young. We'll start off with Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is a guy that I feel like is more likely to be traded than Trae Young. I think he is, to me, I think he has a 90% chance of getting traded. I really don't think there is a realistic world where the Pelicans bring him back, because of a lot of reasons. Now, obviously, his play on the court plays into that, his fit with the team. I heard he had a falling out with the coach, in the locker room, his contract. I think a lot of that plays into a part as to why I do not see him being a Pelican next year. I definitely see him being moved somehow, wherever it may be. I think Brandon Ingram will get traded somewhere. Now, talking about Brandon Ingram's fit potentially in Miami, obviously, it would be the similar package that we would offer to any player who's of that caliber. So it would obviously involve Tyler Hero. I don't think it would involve both Jaime and Nico, and I wouldn't give up Jaime and Nico for Brandon Ingram by any means. I mean, let me just tell you straight up, I don't really want Brandon Ingram on the Heat. Like, I know people do, and I understand why. Like, he's long and lanky at 6'10", and he has a ball handle, he has playmaking, and he can shoot the mid-range jumper pretty well. So he's definitely a very skilled player, and I was actually a really big fan of his coming out of Duke. And honestly, I was on his hype train coming into the league, and I thought he was going to be a really good player. And he was an all-star, I believe. I think he was a one-time all-star, or very close to that, if not. But I'm pretty sure he was an all-star with the Pelicans one season. But I don't know, man. Like, the whole of last year and the year before that, it just didn't really excite me. I really thought he had a next step to take, and he just never took that next step. Now, obviously, some of that could be because he's playing on the Pelicans and sharing the ball with CJ, Zion at times. Like, he doesn't really get his touches as much. But I mean, if you're going to another team like the Heat, who have Jimmy and Bam, like, I'm not really sure if that's going to really make a difference there. And I can make every excuse in the book that I want to, but I'm just not really a fan of his fit in Miami whatsoever. I don't really think, obviously trading Tyler Hero to me is something that the Miami Heat should do in this offseason, but I don't think you should just trade him just for the sake of moving him. Like, I think it has to be for a player who makes sense. I mean, as much as people want to see, a change in this core, and obviously the easiest person to move for that is for Tyler Hero to be traded, the guy still averaged 20 points per game, and he still holds a little bit of value. Like, you shouldn't really be flipping him just to flip him. I don't think the Heat will do that. I don't think Tyler Hero will be traded for Brandon Ingram. I don't think the Heat will be interested in that whatsoever. I think if they want to trade Tyler Hero, it's going to be for a star player, a bona fide star player. And Brandon Ingram, to me, has just not proven that he's one of those guys. And on top of that, even if he was, I just didn't see his fit in Miami. I don't see it at all. Not only is, to me, his play regressed over the past year, I also think that he doesn't really complement our star players the best. Jimmy and Bam both operate majority in the paint, mid-range area, and that's where Brandon Ingram likes to operate mostly. I mean, he can definitely stretch the floor and shoot the three. Like, he can definitely shoot the ball, but he's not a consistent 3-point shooter by any means. It's not like he's going to be like a knockdown 3-point shooter. He's more of a mid-range guy. Likes to take a bunch of tough contested mid-range jumpers over people, uses length to shoot over people. That's what his game is. And when you already have Jimmy Butler, when you already have Bam Adebayo, who shoot mid-range jump shots a lot on your team, you can't, really add another one to the mix. It's kind of like adding DeMar DeRozan to a sense where you're kind of just having 3 guys operating the exact same area. It's just going to be a clunky fit. And especially if you're going to be replacing Tyler Hero with him, like, you're losing spacing in that scenario as well, and you're not getting any back. Obviously, you're getting a little bit. Baron Ingram can shoot, like I said, but definitely not the floor spacer that you need alongside of Jimmy Butler and a Bam Adebayo. So the fit is, again, pretty concerning for me. I'm not a fan of his defense. I'm not a fan of his motor at all. I really think that if he's not scoring the ball, if his shot is not falling, he used to be a plus playmaker. I'm not sure what happened to that. But he just doesn't really seem like a Heat culture type of guy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, there's some guys who I can see, like, even if their shot is not falling, they'll do what it takes to impact the game. But Brandon Ingram just seems like if his shot is not falling, he's just lazing around, jogging, and that's why he got benched for a lot of the times in the closing quarters against the Thunder in that Pelican series. Or I remember against the Lakers in the play-in game, he got benched for, I think, 6 minutes left of the game. He got benched, and they went with Trey Murphy, and they almost won that game. So yeah, he's just a guy that, to me, he's a high volume, tough shot taker, and that's fine. You can have that characteristic, but you need to bring something else along with that. Like, you need to have that dog in you. I'm not sure if he does have that in order for us to integrate him properly into the team. Like, if he's not getting his clear shots, is he going to be causing a scene? I don't really know. Like, I just don't really think it's worth forcing a player into this, system just because he's a talented player, because he is a talented player. But to me, he's always been a player that if he goes on a team that is, not contending and that he can take a lot of shots on, then he'll be effective. But on a team where he has to fit in, I mean, we saw this if you guys watched Team USA in the Olympics last season, you guys know what I'm talking about, man. I mean, I'm pretty sure he got his spot taken. That's how bad it was. And Spo was there. He'll know how awful Brandon Ingram, was at the Olympics. The Olympics were not good for Brandon Ingram. And exactly what I'm talking about is that when you put him alongside good players, does he really excel with his skill set? Because he's not a catch and shoot player. He's not a defensive player. To me, he's a guy who likes to, create a shot off the dribble and take a ton of contested mid-range jump shots. But unfortunately, we just don't really have the place for that. If it was threes, then maybe. But, to me, when you already have 2 guys who operate in the exact same area, he doesn't really impact the game in any other way besides, his scoring. And it's very high volume with his shot selection and everything. Like, it's not what I think is the best fit. And the one thing I did not even talk about yet, I spent all this time talking about his game. I didn't even talk about his contract. First of all, if he gets traded, he's going to have a 15% trade kicker. So right now he's going to be making $36 million for next year. Currently, if he gets traded, you take 15% of that and add that on his contract, add that on top of 36. That's what he's going to be making next season. And that's his last year. So you're trading for him and you're going to have to immediately extend him because, you obviously you don't want to lose him out for nothing. The Pelicans want to trade him because they don't want to extend his contract. And rightfully so, because Brandon Ingram is going to be commanding at least $40 million, somewhere upwards of $35 million in this market. I mean, you look at a guy like Malik Monk, who's commanding about $25 million. It said it right there. It said it. Somebody I think from The Athletic talked about Malik Monk commanding $25 million. Today itself, the report was made out. If Brandon Ingram is gonna be a free agent next year, I expect him to get at least $35 million or upwards of that. I'm not sure if I want to invest that much into Brandon Ingram. I really do think that we have to be smart with who we get and pay. You can't just be paying anybody that much money. That's a lot of money to be paying a guy who's not even going to be your third option if we were to trade for him. He's going to be the number 4 option. The second player to me is Trae Young. And Trae Young is a guy that I would be a lot more in favor of than trading for Brandon Ingram. He's not my first choice. My first choice is Donovan Mitchell. And my second choice, actually, I did not really mention him because I don't even hear any reports about him being in rumors. I mean, I saw him to the Knicks. a couple days ago by Bill Simmons, but I'm not. That's created, completely by hypotheticals. It's nothing behind, nothing factual behind any of that. But it's Mikal Bridges, and Mikal Bridges was my second guy, but he just hasn't been in like trade rumors at all. Like I haven't really heard anybody talking about the Nets or wanting to move him or anything like that. Like I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I would be pretty shocked if he were to get traded. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the Nets next season at all. Like I think the Nets are going to keep him, even though I don't think they should. I'm not just saying this because I want him in Miami. I really don't think it's the best for their team to keep him. I think they should maximize his values as soon as possible. But to me, it just doesn't really seem like they have interest in moving on from him. So if he was in trade rumors, right behind Donovan Mitchell, I really wanted Mikal Bridges on the team, but he's not, obviously a viable option right now. And Donovan Mitchell's question mark because of his extension. So Trae Young is the next guy. And again, I'm not really too sure if he's going to get moved, but there's definitely more of a chance of him getting moved to me than Mikal Bridges, because the Hawks obviously have the number 1 pick. And it's like, what do they do with that pick? Obviously, the Alex Sarr is the consensus number 1 pick a lot of people are talking about. But do you want to keep Trae Young around in that scenario? Do you want to move on from Trey? Do you want to move on from DeJounte? Wouldn't be surprised if Trae Young returns as a Hawk next year. They could just be like, we want to pair up Alex Sarr alongside Trae Young. We want to move on from DeJounte, and we want to, acquire, Alex Sarr and Trae Young and pair them up together to make sure Alex Sarr has an actual point guard. Trae Young is still younger, no pun intended. He fits the timeline of the Atlanta Hawks if they want to go into that direction. But they could also be like, listen, Trae Young is a guy who I think if we maximize his value, like I said with Mikal Bridges, then they can move on from him and go get, a piece that can really, help them hit a full reset. And you move on from Trey, DeJounte, Capella, and Bogdanovich and whoever else you want to. I don't really see a world where they trade Trey and keep DeJounte. I really think that DeJounte is going to be out the door this year or this offseason. It's just a matter of, do they want to keep Trey or trade Trae Young? I'm not really sure what the whole scenario is there. But just talking about, like, do I think Trae Young will be a good option on the Heat? Honestly, I think so. And the reason is, there's a lot of controversy and people have either very high opinions about Trae Young or very low opinions. I haven't really seen that many people in the middle, and I'm kind of neutral with him. I really like his game. I think he's a very, very exceptional playmaker and passer, and I do think he can really shoot the ball from range, and those are his 2 biggest strengths to me. He has a good handle as well. His defense has been really scrutinized, but if you guys have watched the Atlanta Hawks, which many people probably didn't who are watching this video, because I know a lot of people just like to watch the Heat, but I watched the Hawks and I can see a massive improvement in Trae Young's defense from his rookie year to now. I'm not saying he's an excellent defender, even a good defender, but he's gone from being the worst defender in the NBA to a borderline decent, a little bit below average defender. And I think that's an improvement. And a lot of people are talking about we shouldn't trade for him because of his defense. And I'm not really understanding why, because it's not like we have anybody who's a defensive stopper at the guard position right now. If you look at all our guards, besides DeLon Wright, who is obviously not a starter in this league, who on this team do you see and be like, oh my God, we have excellent guard defense and I don't want to, replace that with Trae Young and our defense is going to fall off a cliff? I don't really think it will. I mean, if you saw the playoffs, Tyler Hero is not a good defender. Duncan Robinson's not a good defender. Terry Rozier to me is, he's okay, but I think he's below average as well. Maybe a little bit better than Trae Young. But you're not really losing out on much defense here. Like, that's my point. I'm not saying that Trae Young is a terrific defender. I'm just saying that the guys we have right now are not the best defenders either. And you're getting, if you were to get Trae Young, on top of that, you're going to be getting an offensive player who is so much more better than any of them. Trae Young, if we were to trade for him, would be the best guard that we have had in Miami since Dwayne Wade. Since Dwayne Wade, bro, this would be the best guard. He's better than anybody. Goran, Nunn, anybody. Literally anybody. Hero, Robinson, Kyle Lowry. Like, no matter who you throw out there, Trae Young, his talent, his abilities on the court are so advanced. And he is very young still, man. And again, no pun intended. I understand that's his last name. but he is still a very, very young player, and he has a lot of years left, like a ton of years. I believe he's only like 24. So you have a very, very good piece for your future as well there. Even if you don't win a championship with Trae Young, I really believe that you can have a Trae Young, Bam Adebayo pick and roll for 5, 6, 7 years to come. And that will be one of the best pick and roll duos in the league. I mean, we saw what Trae Young did with Clint Capella when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. He made Clint Capella look like Wilt Chamberlain in his prime at times, bro. Like, imagine what Bam Adebayo can do with an actual playmaking point guard who can get him the ball every single time. Trae Young is a guy who has led the league in assists in multiple seasons. So he knows what it takes, and he knows how to get his players the ball. And he will attract so much attention. And the one thing about Trae Young that I really, really like is that he can get to the rim. He can put pressure on the defense. He can finish at the rim. His float game is elite. He's a very good three-point shooter. And he has a good handle. And he has excellent vision. So everything that you need in a point guard, his ability to break down a defense, his ability to shoot the ball, his ability to pass, you have that. And the ridiculous thing to me is that a lot of people are talking about how his value is so low. I don't see why the Heat shouldn't pounce on him then. If his value is as low as a lot of people are saying, I'm not sure if I buy the fact that Darius Garland's value is higher. I've seen a lot of reports saying that. I don't know if you guys have. But if his value is actually that low, then what is stopping anybody, especially the Heat, from going out and getting him? Now, it could be that Atlanta doesn't want to give him up. But if they really don't value Trae Young like that, or if teams don't value Trae Young, like, bro, just go out there and pull the trigger on him. Go get Trae Young. It won't cost you too much. You'll definitely not have to throw in both Jaime and Nico, I don't think. Even if you do, I would still do it, but I think the asking price for Trae would be a lot less than Donovan's. And it would be the same package basically with Hero, a young guy, a couple of picks, and you get Trae. And I think that is a phenomenal deal for the Heat. Now, the only concern I have with Trae Young is where does the fit with him and Terry Rozier come into play? Because I'm not really convinced that Trae Young and Terry Rozier can really share the floor together at too many times. That's the one thing, because Terry Rozier is a point guard, Trae Young's the point guard. So I do believe that one of them will have to come off the bench in order for this to happen. But as good of a player as Terry Rozier is, if you have a chance to get Trae Young, you figure out what happens to Terry Rozier later. You don't stop yourself from making a trade there that you can get an absolute steal at the point guard position, who's one of the best point guards in the NBA, top 10 to me. You don't, not pull the trigger on that because you like Terry Rozier. We can still have Terry Rozier come off the bench. He can be our sixth man. If you want, you can flip him and get some value for him. You can still make moves. You don't have to. This doesn't have to be your final roster. The point is, Trae Young would unlock so much for our offense. And as bad as our defense was at times last year, it was pretty solid the whole year, even with bad defenders at the helm, like a Tyler Hero or a Duncan Robinson. But the offense was what really struggled. And when you have an absolute offensive engine like Trae Young coming in, I would do that trade 100% of the time. So that is my take on both Brandon Ingram and Trae Young. One is a definite no to me, and one is a definite yes to me. BI is a guy that I would stay away from if I was Miami, and Trae Young is a guy that I would really, really go after if the Donovan Mitchell thing doesn't work out. Everything is kind of contingent on the extension, and as far as Trae Young is concerned, it's kind of also contingent on the fact that if the Hawks want to rebuild, if they want to go into a full reset, they could move on from him, or they could just be like, you know what, we can keep him. Or if they want to get value for him, they can still do that as well. So a lot of questions have to be answered regarding both of these trade rumors, but make sure you guys let me know down in the comment section below your thoughts, comments, concerns, everything regarding both these deals. And yeah, man, I appreciate y'all as always. I'll see you later as always. I'll leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts. What do you guys think our backup plan should be if we fail to get Donovan Mitchell? And yeah, man, I'm gonna see y'all later as always. Have a nice day. Peace.